So Jill, what is values-based budgeting?
So glad you asked. I love this topic because it feels like combining our whole person as we approach our finances. So values-based budgeting is a method where we filter both our income and our expenses through the lens of whatever our highest values are.
Yeah, and I love that you said income and expenses because we so often forget about that income line item.
Right. We can't just be spending on the things that we value.
Right.
We also have to look at what kind of money are we bringing in and how can we allocate it towards the things that we value most.
Yeah. Is this something that you have to abandon all other things that work for you and just do this? Or how can you incorporate values-based budgeting into the budgeting that already works for you, if anything does?
That's the really nice thing about values-based budgeting is that it's super flexible. So you can incorporate it with zero-based budgets or budgeting apps. You can really make it work for you. It's got a lot of flexibility.
I love that.
Let's talk about how we actually execute a values-based budget. What does that look like?
Yeah, so in order to execute a budget, you have to spend within it. So in order to execute a values-based budget, you have to adopt values-based spending.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, which is the real-time decisions that we make when we are tempted to impulse spend. And so since you have made a budget that aligns with your highest values, aligns with what you want, that in itself will cut down on impulse buys because you already know that you have money budgeting to the things that are most important to you. But it's those things when we get decision fatigue or surprises, because you can't plan for everything. You shouldn't plan for everything. So it's those real-time decisions in unplanned circumstances where you have to be aware of your values and have so many other parts of your life connected back to your core values so that you can make better real-time decisions with your spending.
I think that's what makes it so easy to stick to it more long term, is that we've already considered what do we want to spend on that helps us to be able to execute it.
Yeah, and so then you just need those really easy techniques to remind yourself in the moment to cut down on the impulse, the emotional, and habitual purchases. So how do you stick with values-based budgeting long term? I know it's definitely probably easier to stick with if you're aligning your spending and your budgeting, but how do we make that change stick?
I think a lot of it has to do with shifting from external motivators to internal motivators. And the way that we do that is looking at all aspects of our personhood and our financial life. It's not just about looking at income and spending. It's about looking at every single piece and ensuring that we're aligning all of our financial life and even lifestyle to what our values are. That is what's going to make it stick long term because it's what makes it meaningful and purposeful to us. So you also need to consider saving and investing and generosity and how all of these things can fit into the budget. Income is just one line item, but it's a really important line item.
Yes.
We have to take a look at that and then identify where is that income going to go and how does that align with my values? And if it doesn't, those things we need to consider, how do we get rid of them? Or how can I look at this in a way that it is aligning with my values? But again, it's the whole personhood piece and making it more internal, purposeful, and meaningful so that we can utilize this long term and really see awesome benefits financially.
Yeah, I love that because it's when we think about budgeting and spending, it's so much of like, how can I lower my grocery bill? Like, how can I buy fewer lattes? We don't tend to think about the how can I spend better? How can I enjoy saving so that makes it into the budget just as much as the lattes? Or how can I embrace wealth building so that I can be motivated to learn about investing and want to include that in the budget? There's so many different things on our budget that we neglect because we're focusing on these 2 or 3 things that the internet and other people tell us we should be lowering or restricting. But when you find your core values and you connect them back to all parts of your life, not just the groceries, you connect them to the work you do and the income you earn and how you communicate with your partner if you have one, because those core values matter to your finances as well. So like, if you can do that and really connect your core values back to every part of your financial life, then it's going to be a natural thing that you stick with.
Exactly.
For, forever.
Yeah, so much is perspective. If we can look at not just behaviors, right? The latte, that's just like one behavior. And even if you decide that you're not going to get some lattes this week, that's not going to be a lifelong change. And it's also not going to make a lifelong impact on your finances.
No, it will not.
We need to connect it to more than just behaviors. And I think that's what values-based budgeting does.
Yeah.
Okay, how can someone get started with values-based budgeting?
Yeah, so the first thing is to find your core values.
That'll help.
Yeah, so take a core values inventory test online. You can look at lists of 50, 200, whatever, and just figure out what things are most important to you. You may start with a list of like 20, but try and narrow them down to 4. And then look at your spending. Look at your spending over the last 90 days and try and figure out what value those expenses were meeting. Was it community, family, health? If you have like business expenses, maybe it's achievement. Like that's a big one for me. So try and figure out how your expenses align to your values. That can tell you a lot about your core values and help you narrow them down.
And that helps you to identify. I think beyond that, sometimes we might see, oh, this is a value of mine, but it's not actually where I want to be spending the majority of my money, or I do want to be spending more money here. Sometimes that happens. I think that's beautiful, and it helps us to figure out where can we cut more. But just getting started, that's a great place. And for me, even looking at the list of 50 was super helpful. Just like what stands out, almost like that. Have you ever seen those pictures, like the 3 words that stand out to you, like are your destiny?
Yes.
It's not quite like that, but a little bit like what stands out to you. And it is surprising how easily we can identify, like, oh yeah, no, that's actually not that important, but yes, that is. And here's some real-time examples from either my spending or my lifestyle that shows that.
Yeah. And we have a really in-depth core values inventory test in our values-based budget binder, which is over 100 pages. And it goes through literally every single part of your life that could be connected to your finances, which, spoiler, is everything. So there's a section on, obviously, the values-based budgeting and spending, earning and working, because those 2 things are actually different. And you need to connect both back to your core values, saving and investing, your lifestyle, because when we have a lifestyle that's out of alignment with our core values, it breeds a lot more instances for impulse spending than if we have a lifestyle that's in alignment with our core values. And that doesn't mean you have to like pick up and move to an island, like to live a life by the water. Right. Like that's not what that means, but you can find something that aligns with your core values that still is realistic. And even some core values based like relationship communication tools. Like anybody that you talk to about money, you can use core values as an equalizer to make tough conversations a little easier.
That's what I love about the binder, because I think we can talk about the tenets of values-based budgeting, values-based spending, and I think most people can pick up on them and what it is, but the binder really helps to spell out, well, how do I figure out my core values? How do I implement on that? How does this relate to earning, investing, building wealth, working, all of these areas? It gives, week by week, here's what you can work through. And I know, at least for me, I like that. Like, I want a guidebook. All right, I get it, but now how?
Right.
Give me a tool, give me a resource.
Yeah, because it's not that hard to take a budgeting template and switch it over to a values-based budget template. And we have a lot of beautiful ones in there, one for every month along with spending trackers and debt payoff trackers. But that doesn't help you stick with it long term. So most of the binder is that exercise, or that challenge rather, in developing a values-based budgeting mindset, lifestyle, and desire to do that. And we're finding that a lot in our membership community, where we're going through the values-based budget binder as a group, and as a group breaking out into small groups and meeting up there as well. And so that's just an amazing way people are going through this with other like-minded individuals, trying to do the same thing, trying to align their lifestyle to their core values so that they can budget and spend in alignment with that. And it has been transformative for people, which is amazing.
It's been really cool to see the takeaways. And honestly, for me, I think if there's a takeaway just with one podcast episode or one challenge that we do or one workbook, that to me is fantastic, because usually that's all we can really digest is a couple of things. But we're seeing so many people have really profound realizations about themselves, about their partners, their families, their spending habits, the way that they budget. And it really is creating some more long-lasting approaches rather than just behavioral approaches that don't usually last that long.
Yeah, and we hope that these external motivators like the accountability groups and doing the binder as a challenge, those are really a catalyst to develop those internal motivators more quickly, because it is the internal motivators that sustain change. Those are what make these good financial changes stick. And so if we can develop those as quickly as possible, then we can reach our goals faster than we ever planned.
It's like a little greenhouse for growth. And all of these beautiful little plants are just growing so much quicker than they would out in the frozen tundra by themselves.
Yes. What a great way to put it. So we love values-based budgeting as a way to do that, and then doing it as a challenge is amazing.
Even better.
Yeah, and then doing it together. Is
can you tell what our values are?
Yes.
Having fun, spending time with people.
Yes.
Gamifying. Is that a value? Maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, so I'm happy we had this conversation.
Me too, Jen.